We are back. We've had some clutch performances this weekend, a couple resulting in hat-tricks and a blustery battle that became the unexpected game of the weekend. Plenty for us to talk about. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball.
That was very American of you.
Oh no, thanks.
Clutch performances.
Yeah, I'm trying to be cool.
You're so cool, Rachel.
You need to point it out, now it looks worse. Anyway, we are back very late last night, Sophie, from a lovely evening celebrating Emma Hayes at the Football Writers' Awards, where she was celebrated with the Tribute Award. It was a very nice night.
It was a really good evening. Really great to see so many women in the crowd as well. Normally, well, in the past at some of those things it's been very male and very non-diverse. So the fact that the diversity is increasing across the board, I think that's really exciting to see, and to see so many faces in the game who've been involved. Some have been involved since we started as well, or even before we started. So I think that was super important, and it just highlighted the kind of impact that Emma Hayes has had on not just Chelsea but English women's football as a whole, and how much I think the FWA head said that she really, when she speaks, everyone listens, and I think that's truly the correct case, and it's really important that we have someone like her about to kind of lead the way in that respect, and hopefully there'll be many more people honoured. She was the first woman to be honoured by the FWAs with their tribute awards, so yeah, hopefully it's the first of many in the future.
Yes, and a very worthy winner. We have recovered, thank God, from that, because just as well there's lots to talk about. Before we start, I have to remind you, like, subscribe, drop us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to chat, reach out to us. You know where we are on all the socials. We're at Girls on the Ball on pretty much all of them. Even Threads, which, I don't even know if that's still a thing, but we're there. Okay, in today's episode, we're going to run through the WSL fixtures and the results, where we had 26 goals, if my maths is correct, in total. 2 hat-tricks as well. We'll run over the Championship results. We'll look ahead to the Champions League, which makes its return this week, as does the Conti Cup. Plus, Sophie, as ever, you'll be giving us your standout moment of the week.
I'll get thinking.
You will. So, WSL results this week, perhaps no major shocks, but plenty of drama. We had Leicester 0, Aston Villa 1, Rachel Daly with the goal there. Arsenal 2, Everton 1, Ford, Mead and Snoyce with the goals. We did this one. Chelsea 3, Man United 1, LJ with a hat-trick. Beautiful. Hayley Ladd with the goal for Man United. I did that one. You did Brighton 3, Bristol 2, Terland with 2, Robinson with a goal, Harrison and Jones. Lots going on there. Man City 5, Liverpool 1, Hines, Bonner own goal, Bunny Shaw, beautiful hat-trick, and Kelly with the goals there. West Ham 3, Tottenham 4, Clinton with 2 goals, Bizet, Naz, Shimizu, Asai and Tiziak, all on the score sheet of what turned out to be an absolute belter.
That is a lot of goal scorers.
So, we're going to start quickly with Leicester versus Aston Villa. We watched this one from the warmth and comfort of our couch. Not a classic, but an important win for Villa. I feel like Carla Ward said it was a must-win.
Yeah, I think it was a must-win. I think it sent them up to 7th in the table on Friday night, and I think it was a great way to start after that really disappointing defeat to Everton in the FA Cup last weekend, because they just didn't turn up to that game, and while Everton were really good, Aston Villa were just not up to the races. So I think it was really important. It wasn't pretty at times. That pitch wasn't pretty at times.
It wasn't pretty at any point.
Horrible conditions, I think. And, I think it also didn't really... I know Leicester are more accustomed to playing there, but it's still very different from the King Power Stadium. So it probably impacted both teams a little bit. They got their goal, Rachel Daly getting the goal, but I do think Leicester had their chances in that second half, so there's maybe a little bit of luck. I do think Deanne Rose maybe had 2 or 3 chances that I think if she'd had the first half of the season playing would have put away, but because she came back from the Achilles when she signed for Leicester, had probably 2 games or something, back to full fitness, and then did her hamstring. So she's been out for a good while, and it will take her time to get that sharpness back, because she should be putting that 1-on-1 away every day of the week. But it was a good save, but yeah.
Yeah, I think both of those teams have developed nasty habits of losing winning positions in matches. And I think Aston Villa are getting into a bit of a habit of trying to protect a single goal lead. They did that a little bit that night with quite early on time wasting, when actually they have it in them to go on and score more goals. And I think maybe that's the next step for them, because they came very, very close to relinquishing that lead, especially at the death. I really thought that Leicester were going to get a goal, but they didn't, and Aston Villa took all 3 points, which they absolutely needed.
It's really interesting that part of the table, though, because anyone beating anyone changes the whole dimension pretty quickly. I think Leicester will be annoyed. Willie Kirk will be annoyed because they had chances to at least get a draw, and their form hasn't been the best of late. But you can still see what they're trying to do. So I don't think it's panic stations. But yeah, I think for Aston Villa, it's just a sigh of relief.
Absolutely. Then you and I did Arsenal versus Everton. There were moments we thought this game might not go ahead because it was so cold. It did go ahead, and it was still bloody cold. Arsenal started well. I thought they dominated possession, dominated chances. They looked dangerous, but equally Everton looked fairly comfortable at the back. I think Holmgard, Finnegan, Stenovic, they all look irritatingly calm. For such young players, they all look very cool, calm and collected, and they continued playing out from the back. They nearly to their downfall at points, but they just looked really chill about it. And I do think Arsenal probably should have scored more before the Everton equaliser came from Katius Noyes, which was a lovely goal, but they didn't look like overly stressed, which I thought was pretty impressive.
I think it just shows the belief that's running through this Everton side, and I think people really did write them off.
We did,
including ourselves, quite early on because of the threadbare nature of their squad. But they have been putting in performances even when they've lost, and this game was kind of a free hit for them, as it were. They just needed to perform well, and they did that. While Arsenal dominated possession and dominated chances created, and on all the stats deserved to win the game, they did they didn't bank up, but they were compact in terms of their defending. They weren't allowing a lot of spaces. They weren't allowing too many clear-cut chances, I'd say. Courtney Brosnan was superb. She made a couple of really good stops once again. So you can tell the belief that it's kind of coursing through the side. They've got bigger fish to fry, to be honest, in terms of their season and what they want to do with it. Arsenal, to them, doesn't really... They would have liked to get something, but the performance mattered more. For Arsenal, they had to win this. They absolutely had to win it. And people will conversely go on about how they're not scoring the chances and stuff like that, and how we want to see them converted. Yes, we do. But at the end of the day, needed to win the game. If they had dropped points there, the title race would be really, really hard. Yeah.
I do think Everton have found a winning formula in their back line. My only concern is that depth of squad, and if, God forbid, one of them picked up injuries. But at the moment, everyone's fine back there and working very well together.
Especially since Brian said in pre-match that there wasn't going to be no new signings. That they can't afford to bring in new signings. So unless someone leaves, no one's going to come in. Okay. Although I'm not sure that applies to loans.
Yeah.
So I think there could be a loan or two.
Here's hoping. Now, before half-time, Beth Mead did get the goal to put Arsenal back in front. You want to talk about this?
I think it was just a real good example of what Arsenal are trying to do with their midfield players, and how they link up with the wide areas, the flanks, and then also with Viv Miedemar coming out from the 10 and drawing out as well. They are really trying to find ways to utilise the width in different respects, and in this sense, Leah Volti came out to the left midfield position and put in the cross. And I think we've seen it before. She did it against Chelsea at the Emirates for Alessia Russo's goal, if I'm not mistaken. And it just shows how Jonas Eideveld is trying to make themselves have more variety in attack, rather than just relying on doing the same thing again and again and again, which, when you think back to Liverpool at the start of the season, they were just crossing and crossing and crossing. And he's trying to find ways to utilise all his very technical players. When you have Miedemar on the pitch, I thought she was brilliant, by the way. She is obviously not sharp in front of goal, and that's going to come like it did with Mead. But I think the way that she reads the play, you could see her instructing everyone around, and she's 3 moves in front of everyone else. She has the pictures before everyone else has them. So having those kind of intelligent players, Russo is the same in terms of the press, Victoria Pelova again as well. So really, really technical ability on the pitch, and it's just trying to get them to work together to bring up different variations of being able to score and tear defences apart.
Everton did, to their credit, grew into the second half, and perhaps unlucky not to nick a goal at the end because they really were pressing forward. And I think maybe we'll get to Chelsea, but a similar situation where Arsenal maybe relaxed a bit too much when they were in the lead, and I think that maybe allowed Everton as well to really put the frighteners up them, I think, towards the end. But I do just want to quickly touch on Mead, Miedema, Russo all starting, which we were all kind of looking forward to and hoping would work. And there's some really lovely and exciting early signs, I'd say, for Arsenal fans.
Yeah, I think it's going to develop. Obviously, it's new and they haven't had pre-season to work through it. Russo coming in the summer, and then Mead and Miedema coming back later in the season. Well, later in the first half of the season. So it's going to take time for those relationships to form. I think I like the fluid nature of it all. Like Miedema and Russo can switch. He kept Miedema in the 10. And I thought at one point he was going to switch Russo and Miedema, so Miedema would be the number 9 and Russo. But I think they could be quite useful switches. But they also both love to go, like they'll go and get the ball, they press, they run after the ball, they drag people out of position so that spaces appear through the middle. So it gives them lots of options. And once they start really understanding each other, that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely. Speaking of exciting players, we then had Chelsea versus Manchester United at Stamford Bridge. I think I messaged you this. I feel like we'd build this game as two gladiators coming together, and it ended up feeling a little bit in the first half like more of a David versus Goliath match. It was the LJ show, as it so often is at Stamford Bridge. And when you've got a player like that you don't think can find another level, and then she goes to Stamford Bridge and she finds another bloody level. I don't know how she does it. I was watching her through my camera lens thinking, this girl is far too cool for someone so young. Like, I'm so jealous of her cool, calm nature on the pitch. And just the way she plays football is special. So she absolutely stole the show.
Yeah, you could tell she was really, really enjoying herself out there. I think Chelsea in that first half, they were dominant, weren't they? I think it's probably one of the best displays I've seen of Chelsea in
particularly in the first half, yeah.
Well, until 35 minutes when they kind of step back a bit, but I think a really good display from Chelsea. Manchester United fans will be very worried, I think, with the way that United just did not turn up in that first 30 minutes. They were completely outplayed by Chelsea. Chelsea were dominating down the flanks, they were breaking through, they were first to every ball, they were pressing more intensely than any United player on the pitch.
Forwards couldn't get into the game.
Erin Cuthbert and Melanie Lewis-Poles were, every time they were, as soon as the ball was played out from the back, they were on their players and immediately trying to win that ball back. And it was just that intensity of energy. And the stats kind of show it. Chelsea dominated possession. They had 20 shots to United's 9.
How many they were on target?
They only had 5 on target. So that needs to be improved. But still, the fact that they were creating so many opportunities. And United, for the best part of that first half, really, really struggled.
Yeah.
And I think Mark Skinner was struggling to get what he wanted down to the players. There were a couple of moments of tension, as it were, where he was discussing things with the players and it didn't seem to be quite clicking. I did love LJ's celebration as well. I'll give that a shout out because I think didn't she say in post match, like, you kind of, if you give it, you have to kind of be able to take it.
You love that. We talk about atmosphere at these big stadiums. And Manchester United always bring a good travelling fans. They had a really good contingent of fans there, making loads of noise, giving it to her when she went over to take a corner. So if you're going to give it to her when she's going to take a corner, she's going to give it right back. If she's
she's done it. We know she's done it before. Remember at Kings Meadow, and they were playing Arsenal. I think was it in the FA Cup last year?
Yeah, and she did. What was it?
2-0. Some players feed off that, and I think it does add to the intensity and the enjoyment and the entertainment of the game. And you have, as she said, I think you have to be able to, if you give it, you have to be able to take it. And it's part and parcel. And there will be other days where it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, but it's quite fun to watch.
I also loved when she rounded off her hat trick. She went into the crowd and gave out a lot of high fives. That was really nice to see as well. It was very cool.
I think she's starting to look really at home, and I don't know, she's been doing more media as well, and I think that helps. I think she's coming out of her shell. I think because she was so young coming through, she understandably has been really well protected by the clubs in terms of how much media appearances she does, how much people see of her beyond what they see on the pitch. Even her pitch time until the last season was limited. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that she's quite clearly maturing as a football player before our eyes, but also being given the opportunity to show what she's about off the pitch as well as on the pitch by talking to the media and by doing the post-match interviews, and you get a real insight into the kind of character that she is, and the fact that she stays after and does all the signings with the fans and stuff. I think that's really good to see and really engaging as kind of she develops into what I mean, she's clearly the most talented footballer of our generation, so I haven't seen a player like her since probably arguably Kelly Smith.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I think United did come out much better in the second half. Unlucky, I think, probably not to get another goal. But then I think, again, Chelsea found another gear, and Lauren James put the game to bed with that hat-trick. And it was a special match. I thought I enjoyed that in terms of the atmosphere and everything else. And I think for those of us going to the FWAs that night, we were very glad that Chelsea had won. I
do think it means that Manchester United's title race is over.
Yeah,
I think their only real shot now is at Champions League football,
and
even that is slim with both City and Arsenal winning. Because now it's 7 points.
I think the frustration was, and I was thinking this in the first half, was that normally at every kind of season when we saw Manchester United take on the top 3, and I know now it's a top 4, but there was improvements and it was harder. And as it went on, you started saying, I actually don't know who's going to win these clashes now. And then Man United started beating Arsenal, beating Manchester City, and you thought, okay, you know, they've firmly established themselves. Yesterday didn't feel like it was progress, and I appreciate they lost, but in terms of performance, I think the worry was it felt like a step back in terms of performance. And I feel like normally they relish the big games and they step up for the big games.
Remember that game at the Emirates last year? Like they were really up for it, despite being like pegged back by Arsenal. Their lead got turned around. They came back into it, and you know, that last minute winner, and they had that energy about them, which we know they can score late goals, but it doesn't quite seem to be there right now.
Yeah. Okay, you were then I had to rush home, turn myself around for an awards, but you were at Brighton versus Bristol, and this sounded like an exciting game. It was, well, the first half wasn't. The first half was quite truly probably one of the worst halves of football I've ever seen in my life. There was one shot on target in the first half, and that was the goal that Elisabeth Terland scored. At one point, there had been no corners, no shots created, and no shots on target. Right, so I take it back.
That was kind of the sum up of the first half. But no, it definitely kicked into life in the second half. I do like Brighton. That was their first win on home soil since May 2023. And I think they have been building and the results haven't been coming for them. And I think Mel Phillips said in pre-match, didn't she, that, you know, they've been performing really, really well against, you know, the top 4 sides. But when it comes to people that they're expected to beat, they've been struggling a bit. And I think that's a theme throughout the league.
Yeah, similar with Leicester. And
so it's trying to turn the performances and the kind of form that they're showing in moments on the pitch into results. When they have a striker like Elisabeth Terland as well, anything can happen. She is just ridiculous. She's 22. She's broken the Brighton all-time scoring record in 2 seasons at the club.
I was going to say, she should have been there a hot minute.
I mean, it's crazy. And it's like her ability just to be completely clinical on the ball and to score from any position. The first goal was from distance, the second one from inside the box. She said she needs to get better at headers.
She's always putting herself down.
She's always criticising herself, but I think that's what drives her and makes her the kind of professional and top pro that she is, and the fact that we're very lucky to have her in the WSL and Brighton are very lucky to have her. But I think she'll be a forward to watch for many years to come. But I do feel sorry for Bristol. They showed a lot of character in that game. They brought themselves back twice from going behind, and they created 18 chances to, I think it was 8 for Brighton. So they did dominate the chance creation. They had the same on target though, so that's something to work on. But I think that will be the real frustration for them, is that they showed the character, and I think they just sat deeper and deeper going into that. They clawed themselves back once, they clawed themselves back twice, and then they were like, with 6 minutes to go plus injury time, they were like, we're going to defend this lead. And they just got deeper and deeper and deeper, and they were essentially almost on the goal line. Not quite, that's an exaggeration. But in injury time, they were almost on the goal line. Yeah. And it just opened up that space for someone like Terland to find a instance where they're tired in the box. And I did ask Lauren Smith about that. I did, and she said she thinks it's because they were like exhausted from dragging themselves back into the game so often. But I do think they'll learn from that as well, that they need to just keep pushing forward. It feels scary to push forward when you're defending, but they need to try and push out, otherwise you're just asking for trouble. And I did speak to her after the match as well.
Yes, here is what she had to say.
Many emotions probably come straight to mind, but I think it's always going to be disappointment and frustration. We had it in our hands to get a point out of the game, and at that point we're probably thinking that we've come from behind twice. We probably don't deserve a lot, so what a point is a good place to come in from to concede so late in the manner that it was is quite difficult to take. Yeah. And I think, in games that are with teams that are in and around us, it's going to be really important that, whatever way the first goal goes, that's not the end of the game. And that's going to be the same for next week against West Ham and the next time we play Brighton. I don't think that they're going to be games that you have to put to bed too early. They're going to be all the way to the end. And you see it today, the fight at the end from both teams was incredible.
Okay, I mean, she does sound gutted, understandably, and it makes the game next week against West Ham even bigger. We will get to West Ham, who had a similar vein of form in a game that they probably thought they should have drawn. But we get to Man City 5, Liverpool 1 first. Manchester City in great form at the moment, probably playing some of the most consistent football in the WSL, I think it's fair to say. I do think Liverpool did well to score early. They're so good, they're so dangerous on the break. I think they've worked on that, and you can really see how effective it's become. Really pleased to see Hines getting on the score sheet again. I think Beard, while I think Man City deserve to win, I think Beard will be frustrated with the nature of some of the goals, because at least 3 of them came from their own mistakes, which would be really, really frustrating. And Bunny Shaw is so in form at the moment. You can't afford to make those kind of mistakes. I think she's a frightening prospect for other teams to be coming up against right now. But yeah, I think he'll be irritated in the manner in which they lost the game.
Yeah, I think he wanted to be competitive against Manchester City, and he was very well aware in pre-match anyway about their strengths and how good they've been. He said they were the best side, and he thinks they're one of the best sides in WSL this year, and I think we can all agree with that. I think he will be, as you said, just really, really annoyed at conceding those goals because they were avoidable. And that's not to say Manchester City didn't deserve to win the game. They did. And it's not to say that they wouldn't have scored more goals in different situations. They might have done. But in those circumstances, those three circumstances, it's definitely clear that Liverpool could have defended it better. And that will be the really annoying thing for Matt Beard, because it's hard enough going to Manchester City anyway. It's super hard if you start making errors like that. And I think for them, it's just this consistency element for Liverpool. And I think I've said it before on a podcast, it's not linear journeys. That's the thing. They are improving. It's quite clear they are. This is their second year in the WSL, and they're quite clearly improved even from that first year. And they're getting that consistency. But they have the opportunities to beat Manchester United and Arsenal and people like that, but it won't happen every game. And they need, the next step for them as a squad is to try and find that level where they keep that kind of performances up every single time you play them.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, over to West Ham 3, Tottenham 4, which we were trying to keep an eye on at these awards we were at last night, and it went 1-0, 1-0, 3-1. I thought game over, and then I looked back and it was 4-3, and I thought, bloody hell, what have we missed? Turns out to be, we rewatched it this morning, super game, really open football, end-to-end stuff, both teams kind of throwing defending to the wind, quite literally, and playing lots of attacking football, especially the longer the game went on. And I thought it was probably some of West Ham's best football we've seen this season. I think they came from 3-1 down, and I think that fight should be a really exciting sign for West Ham fans. I think the new players have made a difference. Gorey was so dogged in the midfield. I think she was lucky to stay on the pitch out of dissent. She could have been booked twice, I think, for dissent. But I think fans we should love to see that passion already. She's only there a few weeks, and to see that passion and fight already from her must be very exciting.
I think that's everything that Minnie is about as a footballer. If you've watched her for Australia, she is that kind of player. She gives it absolutely everything. She is passionate as hell, and she will run through brick walls for a team, and she will argue with the refs, and there will be flashpoints, but it's just the nature of her as a footballer. I think this window has been really interesting for West Ham, and you can quite clearly see what they've been able to do. Rhiannon Skinner was employed very late in that kind of period in the summer, and it didn't give her the window in the summer. So she was kind of left with a squad of really good young players. Like there's so much potential in that squad, but they're young and they're inexperienced. And when they're in a dogfight and fighting a relegation battle, they need to know how to get through certain experiences. And that's why she's gone after Zadorsky, after Gori and Mewis. They're international players who've literally been through everything that there is to go through in international football, in women's football. And they can bring that kind of level-headedness to a squad and experience to a squad that just needs to sometimes calm down, I think. Some people have said that there's no identity to West Ham and the way that they play. I would disagree.
Yeah.
I think you know what they're trying to do and what they're about. And often the performances in parts have been there. It's been about results. So,
and you look at a lot of the games they've just lost.
Yeah, I think about that game against
Aston Villa,
but also against United.
Yeah,
and I know they were quite heavily beaten, but in the first half, in the second half, they were, taking it to United and a lot braver and a lot more sticking to what Rhian Skinner wants them to do. And while they didn't get the result that day, their second half performance
same with against
just
Arsenal.
showed what they are about and what they're trying to do. So I think there's positive times for them. Will you let me talk about Bobby Ball?
Okay, go on briefly. You've quick minute. Go on.
So I tweeted earlier, I think, that Bobby Ball is very, very fun if you don't care about defending. And I do. That's my big red flag with Bobby Ball, is that I love all of the attacking play and I love what they're doing up front, and I love the fact that you've got young players but also experienced heads. You've got Bethany England back, you've got Martha Thomas now playing a number 10 role, but also able to play in that number 9. You've got Grace Clinton in the form of her life, Celine Bizet, who you love.
Highly underrated.
I mean, I love her too, but I think she's highly underrated. You've got all of these attacking players, but then you kind of forget about your defence. And he joked on Sky Sports last night in post-match that when his side had conceded the third goal, he thought he might have to start thinking about defending. And I was kind of like, you kind of have to do it anyway. Yeah. Like, you need to think about the defending because you can't go hell for leather. But I think they are very fun, and I can't wait to see what he does with them over the next few years, because his attitude to building something at Spurs is really admirable. He talked in pre-match. He's talked many times about how, because he'd been asked about whether he's going to sign Grace Clinton, and he was like, last night, he was like, I'd be mad not to want to sign her. But he was also very clear he doesn't really want to do loans for players much anymore. He wants to sign young players in on long contracts so that he can build them and they can develop them at Spurs into players that will stay with them for a long time. And he also then wants to build the academy at Tottenham and start producing a younger generation who will be the next Lionesses. That's his goal. He wants to produce Lionesses for England. So he is very, very clear on that, and it's not going to happen overnight. These things never do. But that's his vision for the club, and I think it's admirable.
Love that. Okay, on to Championship results now. We're going to fly through these because it is still as crazy as ever. Lewis 1, Durham 1, Charlton 3, Blackburn 2, London City Lionesses 0, Crystal Palace 2, Southampton 3, Watford 0, Sunderland 3, Sheffield 0. So the table now looks like this. We've got Charlton on top on 26 points.
Can I just say one thing? Bear in mind, Birmingham were on top at the beginning of the day.
Thanks for... It says it in my notes.
No,
you're just going to cut in there like that. Charlton are on top on 26 points from 13 games played. Keep up here now because Sunderland are behind them on 25 points. Palace are on 24 points, but they've only got 12 games played. Southampton are on 24 points, 13 games played. And, as Sophie ruined the surprise, Birmingham, who were top, are down in 5th on 23 points, but they've only played 12 games.
Thanks to Reading's food poisoning.
Thanks to Reading. Jesus, don't eat the food at Reading. So, very exciting at the top, but equally down the bottom, you've got Watford on 6, Lewis above on 8, Reading on 11, and London City Lionesses on 12. So it's getting pretty tight down there as well.
Absolutely vital point for Lewis.
Absolutely.
They will have wanted to win that game against Durham. They will feel that they probably could have done, but they need to keep in touch in distance with those above them, and because of the 2 spots going down, relegation spots this season, the jeopardy is really high.
Yeah. So
they need to keep in touch if they've got a chance of getting out of that. And sadly for Watford, I think their game is run, but we'll see.
Okay, so over to your moment of the week, please, which I believe I might have ruined.
You did ruin.
But do it again.
You completely ruined it.
Talk about it again anyway.
So it was Leo Volti's pass for Beth Mead. I thought it just encapsulated the importance of Leo Volti as a player, and there's been so many rumours this winter transfer window about whether she'll move on, which Jonas Eideveld was very clear to shut down. Absolutely no truth in any of it whatsoever. So I don't really know where that came from. She has a contract as well, so I think she seems quite happy there. But you know, the way that she's integral to their play as well. She was one of the best defensive contributors on Saturday, and then the support that she gives them in attack, and her change from. I mean, you always used to think of her as a central midfielder, that kind of deeper lying midfielder. Now she's available to support attacks and learning how to make herself kind of versatile and moving out to the wide areas to support the players going forward and all of that. So, hugely important to Arsenal, and long may it continue.
Absolutely. Right, so the Champions League is back weirdly in January. We've got Chelsea taking on Real Madrid at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday night. Real Madrid are already out of it, but will still provide a stern test, I think, as they did in the first leg and last season, and obviously after that first game in the group, so they'll want revenge.
They will. When we spoke to Johanna writing Cannerid last week, they were robbed. She was furious. And given that was October?
Yeah.
That game was, or something like that. It's been a few months or something. Anyway, it's been a couple of months. You'd think your anger might have died down. No. It's still simmering away, and they're going to want revenge for that game where two horrible refereeing decisions kind of cost them the 3 points, and arguably they would have secured progression already. So, it's a big game for them. A win will see them through, and that's basically all that matters. It also would take the pressure off going to Paris. Yeah,
and it would be good to see Chelsea again in a short space of time to see if they can maintain the level that they reached in the first half on Sunday. And I think if they do play like that again, the rest of WSL needs to watch out. They then, as you say, play away to Paris FC next week, and we will be there. I'm really intrigued to see how Group C turns out, because currently any 4 team could still go through, I think. I'd quite like to see Bayern progress. They're currently third with Ajax and PSG above them and Roma below them, a point below them.
I want to go to Rome.
I know you do, but I missed out on Bayern.
I'm Team Roma and Team Ajax, actually. I'd like either of those two to go
I've been to the Ajax stadium. I would like to see the Allianz that I missed out on last season, and I want to see Georgia Stanway play, who I will be speaking to later this week, I think, for 90 minutes, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be at Stamford Bridge on Wednesday, heading to Southampton versus Spurs in the Conti Cup on Thursday, and then you'll be flying the GOTB flag this weekend while I'm in Dublin, you're covering Brighton versus Chelsea on Saturday, and then a huge clash on Sunday between Bristol and West Ham.
My nerves won't be able to say that.
You've seen both teams play this weekend. Give me a very succinct, short response in who you think is going to win.
I have no idea.
That was short. I think it's going to be a high-scoring draw.
8-8.
Yeah, why not? Okay, that is a wrap on this week's episode of Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. We'll be back next week with plenty of competitions to chat about. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to our pod. If you have any questions or you want to chat to us about anything or get us to talk about anything, do message us on social media. We are Girls on the Ball pretty much everywhere. Until then, we'll see you next week.